So it's been a while since I've done really any videos. Not for lack of wanting to, it's just I haven't had as much inspiration. Life's gotten busier over the last like 5 months or so, and that's a good thing. But it just means I haven't been really motivated or had the time to really think about making videos, and clearly my setup has not gotten any better. I'm also filming on my iPhone because of what this video is. I needed all my camera gear to do this video, so I was like, okay, well, iPhone 11 camera it is. And I'm using the front-facing camera so that I can see what's going on. So basically, this is just kind of an updated camera gear, kind of how that's all going video. Because things have changed since the last one I made. But I have gotten better about trying to use my camera like for self-portraits and things lately. So I might include some of those. The first one to start off with is one that I'm not using anymore. This is one that I've been trying to sell, but Olympus is not as easy to sell in the US because people don't buy Micro Four Thirds over here. So this is the PenF 9. And I've had this one for a few years. I've had it since it came out. Mine is still in excellent condition, and I'm just going to sell it with a kit lens, but no one has wanted to buy it. Even the camera stores are like, we have too hard of a time selling Micro Four Thirds. And yeah, I know you can do online stuff, but like that's a lot more complicated, and usually you don't get much for it and stuff. So I don't know, part of me like right now is like, maybe I'll just save it, and if there's someone I know who would really love a camera, I'll give it to them. Much as I would like to make money, at the moment, I'm like maybe gonna make $100 off this. And this thing, if you look to buy it now from like Olympus, it's still like $400 or $500. So I'm like, well, that's a little ridiculous. So anyway, that one I'm not using, but it is still a camera that I still own. The one I normally film on, I keep in this little pouch with all its things, including its charger apparently, is still the original Canon G7X. Nothing really new or fancy about that. Still like the best video camera I have. I mean, I know there are some good ones, but like I try to use my like mega cameras like for doing this, and it always ends up screwed up. So I still like using this. It's so easy to set up. It's just like, obviously, and it would be getting a lot better picture right now. It's just like, obviously I want to use my phone so that I could film this. And I'm actually trying to use an external mic that I bought, but it's not great. So I think I need to get a lapel mic. So we'll see if this even sounds any better. I don't even know, with the mic that I have plugged into my phone that can also plug into cameras. So yeah, that's just my little pouch of my Canon G7X. This one I don't really use. This one I kind of bought as a joke last year. You probably have all seen the video. I bought a very old pink Nikon mirrorless. This is the, can't remember which one it is. Which Nikon is this? The S1. And it's really cute. So it has the pink case with it. It's like a leathery case. It's very nice. And the whole camera's pink. The lens is pink. As you can see, it's a color I like. So it may not be the best camera, but it is still really cool. And it still works very well. And it also came with another lens. So it's got a 10 to 30 millimeter lens here. And then this one is 30 to 110. I think the camera itself is like, I want to say it's something like 10 megapixels or something, like my iPhone does better. But it still takes really good photos, honestly, and it's just so cute. Like, more than anything, I kind of just wanted it for like a prop for photos, because it is a very old camera. It's not like recent technology by any means. But I just thought it was really cool. So let's see. All right, so now the main ones I use. The one I find myself using the least now of all of these is actually my replacement OMD EM10 Mark II that replaced, yes, this is Mark II, right? Yes, that replaced my Mark I that got destroyed a few years ago right before I left for England. The reason this is the one I least use now is because out of all the rest of my cameras, this is the least sophisticated. And I also, like, I still don't love that that's the flip screen on it. So like my other ones all just do better things, and I just feel like the other ones do a little better. You'll see in a minute what I mean when I say the other ones. Because of all the cameras I have left, this is the lowest end one, and it's still an amazing camera, and it's so cool It's got the awesome vintage look to it. So I still love this camera, and I still think it's an amazing camera. I have a camera problem, I know. There's also a part of me that ever since that happened to this one, like, I just like feel like I need to have the cameras in case something happens again. I have 4 Olympus cameras, so you've seen the one I'm trying to get rid of, this one that I'm not getting rid of, and then I'm just gonna set this here for now. The next one, the rest of these I all kind of use pretty interchangeably as like how much I use them. The next one is this one that I got last year. This is the OMD EM5 Mark II. I bought this used, and I also bought the Pro lens. This is the 12-40 f 2.8 lens from Olympus. This thing's amazing. I also love that it has this hand grip. It came with it, so whoever sold this to me had the hand grip already, which has made a huge difference in this camera. It also makes it look a little more professional, which I know doesn't matter, but when you're doing stuff, like I not that I should let it get to me, but like one time I was photographing a dance performance a couple years ago, Nutcracker, and I was photographing with this, with a better lens on it than the kit lens, but still, and a guy there was like, well, you really need something better to be doing this, and I was like, it's doing fine. To be fair, it was doing fine. That was also the first time I ever photographed a ballet performance, which is pretty much where I focus my photography now. Like, I'll do other stuff for fun, but that's kind of like the main thing I love to do is ballet photography. So usually I'll just photograph the shows at my dance studio. That's kind of the only chance I really get to do it. Or I do my own ballet photos, which is hard to do. But anyway, this one is great, and the whole reason I wanted this camera, one, just to have a little more professional camera. It's weather sealed, which is what I really wanted, and so is the lens. So if I'm going to go somewhere, like when I go to Disney World in June, this is probably the only thing I'm taking is this camera and this lens. That's it. It is heavy, but it does have the like fully articulating screen, which is wonderful. And I really love this hand grip. Like, that makes such a difference on this. But yeah, so I wanted this because I wanted a good zoom lens that also was a really sharp lens. Because with dance photography, I don't always know where I'm going to be able to stand. We have a very small, like, in-studio black box theater that we make. So when I take photos there, I'm not that far away. It's not like photographing at like a normal auditorium or something. Generally, I'm like fairly close to the stage, but there's a good difference between when a dancer's at this front corner of the stage versus that back corner of the stage. And I really wanted a lens that could give me sharp photos for any of those spots. And so that's what this lens does. Now I will say, sometimes I feel like this camera kind of misses the focusing sometimes, and I still haven't quite figured that out. Because the other Olympus camera I have seems to do a much better job at focusing, which is funny because it's actually an older camera. But this lens really does a good zoom distance. I also ended up using it because when we were trying to do virtual stuff, we filmed one of the performances, and they had bought a camera to use at the studio, and they actually bought a Micro Four Thirds camera. It was Lumix GX5 maybe. But either way, they just had the standard lens on it, or it was a Leica lens on it. It was still a good lens, but it wasn't this lens. And my lens, honestly, just the zooming in and out was so much easier on my lens that I actually, each night that I filmed, I just took my lens and put it on that camera and used it, and like it just made the colors pop and just everything. So it's also really good for filming. It's got a very smooth rotation to it. But yeah, the lens like allows me to get good like photos where I can like zoom out really quick if they get really close to me, because with dance they're just like going like this all over the stage. Like you don't really have the chance to be like, okay, stop, let me get this photo. So that this one, I was so excited about this one. I got this one used again because this is actually like discontinued. We're hoping they make a Mark II, but they haven't said, since it's now OM Solutions, we don't know. This is the PenF. This thing is a beast of a camera for as small as it is, and it is so sharp. This is pretty much what stays in my purse all the time because I pretty much always have a camera in my purse. And actually my favorite feature about this, it also, like I said, this does really sharp focusing, but my favorite feature about this is the little knob on the front that lets you do like all the different art models. So I just like flip it to black and white, and it just like the black and white photos that come out of this are so gorgeous. I took some portraits of my sister, and like the color ones look great, but then the black and white ones, like, she was like, whoa. And I was like, I know, that's why I really like this. And then this camera also has the fully articulating screen, which is nice. I believe it also has a higher megapixel. I don't remember. It doesn't say on here. I mean, those are all things you can look up. Right now I just have the kit lens with a little funny lens cap that lets it just go on, just because that's easier to keep it in my purse. But with that, I also generally carry my little baggie of lenses. It is actually a hard decision for me of if I would take this to Disney World or just take this one. But I think I'm gonna go with this one just because it's one lens that can really do it all, and it's weather sealed, so if it's a rainy day in Disney, which happens a lot, I'm not as worried. I'm still gonna be very cautious, but I'm not as worried. This is a much lighter, smaller option, although I'll say adding this chain, I love this strap from Olympus, but it makes the camera a lot heavier. But I do love this camera, like the ergonomic, like just like how you hold the camera, everything just feels so good with this camera. But what I was saying about my little lens pouch is, so it's one that the Lumix lenses I have, because I actually ended up buying those, came in. The lenses that I carry in this little pouch, and this all together going in my purse is like nothing. So it's really nice. Like, no matter, my boyfriend has gotten used to the fact that I always have a camera with me. And so have my parents. Like, they're just like, why is your purse so heavy? Oh, right, you always have a camera. And I'm like, and aren't you all glad that I always have a camera? So the ones that I bought are, this is the Lumix, it's the same ones I've had in my other videos. This is the 20 millimeter. So it's the Panasonic little one. So that one is a great lens. And then I have the one from them it's also Panasonic. It is the 42.5. So by Micro Four Thirds standards, this one is closer to a like 90 millimeter lens in 35 millimeter terms, and this one's closer to like a 40 millimeter lens. So kind of odd focal lengths, but it works. Anyway, and then I keep my little cleaning brush, extra memory card, and extra battery. The EM5 Mark II and the PenF actually take the same battery, so that kind of helps if I ever I'm using just one of them for like a more professional shoot. I just take all the batteries in one, but otherwise I try to keep them split up between the two, because that way I'm never like without an extra battery. I usually carry another little lens pouch with this one, but I don't carry a lens in it because I kind of feel like I don't. When I used to try and carry all these little lenses and this, I found that I never took this one off. So, because it really kind of did all that. But a lot of times with the PenF, I do actually like using the more portrait style lenses. So, okay, so that's the extent of my Olympus stuff. Now, I did have a Canon camera. So like 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I finally sold all of my Nikon gear, because that's what I originally started out with. At the time, I still had like a D7100, 7200, I don't know, something like that. It was fairly professional. I never got good photos out of it. The only time I did is when I used this massive Sigma lens that I had that was amazing, but that lens was so heavy that I never wanted to use the camera, which is why I went to Olympus, because I was like, oh, this is great, I can carry all these. Well, now that I'm doing dance photography, and especially it's like motion in low light, unpredictable jumping around the stage, because even if you know the choreography, it's still all over the place. I needed something a little sharper, because even when I use like these, I still miss a lot. And like what I found is yeah, I got used to using the electronic shutter on these because it was great when you're trying to be silent, which during a performance, if you're out in the audience, you really have to do that. If I'm in the wings, I don't put it on silent as much because gets better photo if it's not using the electronic shutter. The electronic shutter will give you a lot of banding depending on the lights, and I found that, unfortunately. So if I'm like shooting out in the audience area, but it's like a dress rehearsal or something, I just keep the shutter noise on, because then it doesn't give me that banding and it doesn't make the photos weirdly dark. So that is a disadvantage I have found. But like I was saying, I needed a camera that was really faster and better for that. So like a few years ago, this was before I started dance photography, I had switched over to Canon. I got a Canon T7i just to try it out. And I did find that I really, really liked using that camera. Like just the use of it and everything, I felt like I got good photos out of it, even though it wasn't a great camera. It's a very entry-level camera. And with it, I had this. The guy talked me into this in case I ever got a full frame. This is the 17-40 f4. So it's an L lens. It's very beat up, but it still works amazing. And then I got the standard 50 millimeter f1.8. But what I did this year, I still can't believe I did this, but it made a huge difference when I photographed the last show. I traded in my T7i, and I had like 2 other lenses that would not work on a full frame camera. One was a 24 millimeter, which is great if you have a cropped sensor, because it like kind of almost gives you a normal view. It's great. And then I had a super long zoom lens that I never used. So anyway, I sold those. I was hoping to sell my EPL9 for part of this as well, and it didn't work. But I ended up getting the Canon 5D Mark IV, which is pretty hefty camera. So this is what my friend shoots weddings on and stuff, and she's always raved about it. So I bought a used one off of eBay because none of the camera stores had any in stock anywhere. And I knew I wasn't going to pay full price outright for it, because I was like, I can't afford that. I could barely afford the used one. And I found the used price I found it for on eBay was much better than a lot of other places' used price, and the guy selling it had a much lower shutter count. The only thing, and I don't know if he knew this was an issue or not, because I try to think the best of people, is, and I know this is a Canon 5D Mark IV issue that other people have had too. I've had a lot of times where I've used this and it just freezes up completely, and the only way to like fix it is to just take the battery out and put it back in, and it's happened like 6 or 7 times now on me. My friend said it's happened to her, and she bought hers brand new, and she said it's happened to her a few times, but only a few. And I haven't had it that long, and it's already happened that many times to me, which makes me nervous. But I also like, I'm still paying off the camera. I don't have money to go in and send it in for repair to Canon. And I Googled it, and a lot of people said that like they would send theirs into Canon and they would say they can't see any problem, they can't fix it. So I don't really know. At the moment, we're just going with it because I don't have the money to be sending it in to do anything. But other than that, it's been phenomenal. Oh my goodness. And that was me basically just going with this 50 millimeter lens. The only problem with that is that like I was shooting from the same spot, but then this is just 50, so everything was really far away, and I had to do a lot of cropping in the photos, which thankfully, because this is like a 30 megapixel sensor or whatever, I can crop and it doesn't really take away as much. I was also shooting in RAW, which helped. But the only other thing is this takes a compact flash, which are really hard to find in store here. So, and I just like, I haven't bought a new one. The guy sent me one with it, and so I have a compact flash with it, but I need to get a better one. So this is the one that's just been shooting. I've been putting the JPEGs on the compact flash, and then I have a much better SD card that's been doing the RAW files, because I just shoot both at the same time. But I noticed, especially in that show, having to fix the lighting issues, and like just the colors and the brightness and everything, and also cropping in on people, this camera made such a difference. And it also got really sharp photos. I do notice that while it was easier to track people using the like LCD screen and like watching, it does, I feel like, do a much faster shutter and everything if you use just the viewfinder. But then I felt like I wasn't always getting the most accurate shots, like focus wise, and that could just be me not knowing this camera very well. I've watched a lot of videos, but obviously I could still use some work. And then the only other thing I've done since then, because I felt like if I do more shows, which we have Giselle coming up, although I'm in all the shows, so I'm not sure what I'll get aside from Act 2 because I'm not in Act 2, is I bought an 85 f1.8, which I have already used for portraits with, like, my boyfriend and I will do self-portraits sometimes at the park, or I took some of my sisters, or my sister and I took some on the beach with it, and it's so good. It's so sharp. So I bought it used as well. So that's been a really, really, really good addition. I really like using this camera, but it is so heavy that's why it's really just like my workhorse for the ballet stuff, because I want those photos to look so good. And the Olympus ones are more for fun, although I do think I'll probably, for like Giselle or something, or for shows, I'll probably take both of these together because this one is just good for being able to zoom in and zoom out really quickly. It's just more the focus on this one I feel is a little off, and like part of me wants to try the PenF with this lens and just see if I get better focusing, but I don't have a whole lot of opportunities to try that out, and then it's like, let me carry all of my cameras with me. The only other thing I was going to mention before I go is I don't really carry a camera bag usually. That's really bad. I usually just use a purse and I kind of separate things out. But Freed of London, which is a point shoe company, ballet clothing, everything company, had some new bags out, and they looked really cute. And I didn't want to order the giant duffel bags. They're really expensive for what they're made of. They're not like super fancy material, and this was like $100. But it's sectioned out into 3 parts. So the middle part I've been using as like my purse, although I could use it as another camera slot. And then I've been separating my cameras, like putting the Canon and the lenses in this side, and then putting my Olympus and its lenses in this side. So that way it's like, it's actually been a really nice little camera bag to use. So that's pretty much why I have this now. It's still a good size, but I can still, it fits a ton in it. I know that's not what it was intended for, but that's what I'm using it for. So yeah, basically I mostly shoot like ballet photography. I'm not a professional. This is just for me for fun because I really, really love photography. I am shooting the end of my friend's reception this month. And so I'm doing her sparkler send off, not fireworks. So I'm going to probably take the 5D Mark IV, since that's what my friend who does the weddings and is doing her wedding is using, and then I will just figure out my settings from there. We also did some astrophotography recently, and I took both the PenF and this, and I actually got much better photos out of this than I did from the PenF for astrophotography. But again, it's very different camera types, you know, mirrorless and traditional DSLR, and just very different class of cameras too. Like if this was like the EM1 or like the 1DX, I think is Olympus's biggest mirrorless one or whatever, then yeah, it might have compared more to the 5D Mark IV. I don't know, but I know that having this camera was gonna make it a much better. I even asked the guys at the camera shop when I was debating between like the EOS R or whatever instead. Like the guy was actually asking me why I wanted this instead of that, and I explained what I shoot, and he said, oh yeah, low light and motion and dance photography, yeah, you need that. And so he even agreed that this was the better option for what I was photographing. But any other time, like hobby stuff, vacations, whenever we can travel again, going to Disney World, I'm just going to take my Olympus gear because it's so much easier to take around with me. And that's what I carry around with me every day to take photos when we go on just little dates around the city, go to the park, family events, things like that. So that turned into a lot longer video than I expected, but it's been a while and I figured this was a good update. And that's all. So